Labas rytas, gerbiami kolegos.
Good morning, colleagues. Please take your seats. Let us begin the morning sitting of the Seimas of the 28th of March. Please register.
Užsiregistravo
80 members of the Seimas have been registered. Now let us begin the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the membership of NATO. I would like to welcome the guests at our celebration, and I forward the chairing to Paulius Saudargas, Deputy Speaker of the Seimas. I give the floor to Victoria Čmilytė-Nilsen, Speaker of the Seimas, to make a welcome address.
Dėkoju gerbiamas posėdžio pirmininkas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Seimas, Chief of Defense, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. Today we are gathered here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Lithuania's membership of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. By joining NATO and the European Union, Lithuania established its rightful place in Europe's political, security, and economic structures. After the 11th of March 1990 and the 13th of January 1991 and the withdrawal of the invading Russian army from Lithuania, this was undoubtedly a turning point in the modern history of our country. Lithuania's membership of NATO marked a turning point in the Western worldview too. Until then, we were often still classified as someone else's zone of interest, with imaginary red lines keeping us away from NATO and EU membership. With our membership of NATO, this Rubicon was crossed. And together with the alliance, we declare to the world that our borders and our interests are inviolable and will be defended. Lithuania's place in NATO was also symbolically consolidated by the successful NATO summit held in Lithuania last year. From the outset, Lithuania has taken an active role in NATO, not only as a recipient of security, but also as an active participant. We have stood in solidarity with our allies around the world, participating in missions ranging from Iraq to Afghanistan. Our commitment to collective security has been unwavering and constant, despite the years that have gone by, the changes in governments, and the growing new generation. Throughout the past 20 years, Lithuania's confidence in NATO has always remained high. Thanks to its membership of NATO, Lithuania has enjoyed a period of relative stability, allowing it to focus on economic growth and social progress. But it is also true that we have been lulled by our own success. Although we sometimes like to remind our allies the words, "Didn't we say so?" It has to be admitted that, even in Lithuania, the echoes of Russia's aggression against Georgia in 2008 were not loud enough to make us pay more attention to our own national defense. Our approach to national defense started to change only after Russia's occupation of Crimea in 2014, but a real change took place on the 24th of February 2022, when Russia launched an unprovoked full-scale war against Ukraine. In response to this aggression and the increased threat to security, we have increased our defense spending, reinforced our military forces, and started to actively support Ukraine in the face of Russia's aggression and continue to do so. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the entire Seimas for the strong focus and unity it has shown in taking the decisions that are vital for national defense and support for Ukraine. I look forward to continuing this in the same vein in the future. In today's unstable geopolitical environment marked by Russia's war against Ukraine and its ambition to dismantle the European security architecture based on international law and the strengthening of authoritarian states, it is necessary to double, and if necessary, to triple our defense efforts, and together as allies, to reaffirm our mutual commitment to collective defense. With Finland's and Sweden's membership of NATO, which have significantly changed NATO's geostrategic position in the Baltic Sea region, with the increasing focus on the defense industries of NATO member countries, with the economic, political, diplomatic, and military capabilities at its disposal, and with the strategic awakening that has taken place, NATO has every capacity to ensure security and stability not only in its own territory, but also in the surrounding regions and even across the world. The most important thing is to have the political will to defend itself and the ability to continuously adapt to evolving security challenges. Let us hope that NATO's anniversary summit in Washington will be a further step towards a safer, more stable, and fairer world. And as we celebrate Lithuania's road to NATO, let us also have some faith in the future. A future where we will celebrate not only our own milestones of NATO membership, but also those of our neighboring countries. Let us imagine a day when Ukraine will stand alongside us as a full NATO ally. That would be the best proof of our collective commitment to freedom, democracy, and security. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. She will continue chairing the sitting.
Dėkoju, gerbiami kolegos.
Thank you, colleagues. Today, we will also hear welcome address from our guests from abroad. And first, I would like to give the floor to Lord Robertson of Port Ellen, former Secretary of General. He will join us online, and his speech will be translated into the Lithuanian language. We're still waiting, Lord, to join us. And while this happens, I would like to give the floor to Colonel Peter Nielsen, commander of the NATO Force Integration Unit in Lithuania. The floor is yours, Commander.
Dear Madam Speaker, members of the Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I really lack words to describe the honor it is for me to stand here before you today. I have 2 points to give you in my speech. First, you are safe. We are NATO and we are stronger together. And the second is, I want to thank you. But first, I want to quote some words from the former US President George Bush when he spoke here in Vilnius in November 2002. The long night of fear and uncertainty and loneliness is over. You are joining the strong and growing family of NATO. In the face of aggression, the brave people of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia will never again be alone. His words are just as true today as they were more than 20 years ago. You are not alone. Lithuania is part of a united and strong NATO. 32 nations now that will defend every inch of NATO territory. 2 decades ago, these threats we were facing were different, and NATO's policy was focused more on terrorism and insurgency. Conflicts were far away, and we lived in a peaceful Europe. With the second Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and their threat to the rest of Europe, the situation changed dramatically. Now there is an actual threat to the alliance on European soil. NATO reacted firmly, and in Madrid 2022 identified Russia as the most significant threat to our security. We threw away the old tripwire concept of hope and deterrence and implemented a new concept of defense. During the Vilnius summit last year, which to me was a historic summit, NATO approved the new regional plans that provided the biggest changes to NATO planning in more than 30 years. The plans are detailed and connected in all domains, and the necessary capabilities to execute the plans have been identified, and nations are committed to provide them. For me, this is a déjà vu. It is the same picture I saw during the Cold War. At that time, the NATO Eastern Front was the inner German border. NATO units were stacked on top of each other from the Northern Europe to Southern Europe, facing east. I was a very young tank platoon leader in Denmark, and my unit was tasked to drive down to Germany and stop the Russian invasion. That luckily never happened. We prepared and trained this every year. Now I see the same happening, but much further east, on the border of freedom, on NATO's new Eastern Front. In military headquarters across the alliance, regional plans are being staffed and detailed even further down to tactical plans. They are also being linked to national defense plans and plans for receiving and sustaining reinforcements. In the end, ideally, every soldier will know where to fight from his foxhole. I've lived here now for almost 3 years, and people regularly ask me if it's still safe to live in Lithuania. And my answer is always the same: yes. Because these detailed and comprehensive plans and all the units that train to execute the plans will be the most effective deterrence we can ever imagine. That will prevent Russia from having an opportunity to attack NATO. And dear parliamentarians, thank you for having the courage to make hard priorities and difficult decisions and dedicate so much effort and funds for NATO and defense of Lithuania. I remember you had a provisional reconstruction team in Afghanistan already 1 year after you joined NATO. I know it's not easy, but you probably still have some work to do on the whole of society defense concept. But Lithuania is truly a shining star, lightening the way for other NATO countries. The NATO Force Integration Unit has visited many different parts of Lithuania, from Klaipėda to Salsininkai, from Sarasai to Druskininkai, and we have talked with mayors, municipality councils, high school teachers and students, and we have also spoken with so many different people here in Vilnius. We are always and everywhere met with open arms, a warm hospitality, and a deep sense of gratitude. Your approach to us make our mission here in Lithuania the most rewarding of all our missions. Madam Speaker, parliamentarians, on behalf of all NATO soldiers serving in your beautiful country, thank you for providing me with this unique opportunity to express our deepest gratitude to you for your people's hospitality and kindness. Labai, labai, ačiū.
Thank you so much for your kind words and the address to the Seimas. Dėkojame už pasisakymą.
We thank the Colonel, and now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Arvydas Pocius, member of the Seimas Committee on National Security and Defense and former Chief of Defense of the Republic of Lithuania.
Labas rytas.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Speaker of the Seimas, members of Parliament, distinguished guests, fellow Lithuanians, ladies and gentlemen. I want to congratulate you all on the 20th anniversary of Lithuania's accession to NATO. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Lithuanian politicians, diplomats, public servants, servicemen who understood the situation of that time and the threats that Lithuania was facing, and who did everything for Lithuania to become a member of NATO. As a former serviceman, I can say that the former Lithuanian armed forces, as well as other institutions, had to do their homework that were called NATO Membership Action Plan. The Lithuanian armed forces had to change the mentality that had succeeded from the Soviet Union in terms of conscripted soldiers and also retired servicemen, and a small part of people engaged in Soviet army as professionals. We need to change that experience into the Western one. We need to learn military procedures, we need to change our customs. In order to take over Western NATO procedures, we had to learn foreign languages and to enter military academies in NATO member countries. We served and we learned, and things that we learned in NATO member states needed to be taught to our servicemen in Lithuania. We achieved the necessary standards, and we also engaged in military exercise operations with foreign countries. We communicated in the English language according to the procedures, Western procedures we learned. In 2004, I had a great opportunity given by fate to me when I studied in the US Infantry College. I had the opportunity to be invited to the White House in Washington, where the reception ceremony of 7 new members of NATO took place. It was a great day. I saw the tears in the eyes of thousands of former refugees of war. I was moved by that too. And I saw remember the fact when an old former soldier from Lithuania approached me and he asked me whether he could touch my uniform. And he said that he was very happy to do so. And these words were very important. I remember them until now. I believe that Lithuania's accession to NATO was an important day, not only for Lithuanians in Lithuania, but also for those that were forced to go into exile. I thank all those who contributed to Lithuania's accession to NATO. I congratulate you on this occasion and also the coming spring holidays. Thank you.
Arvydui Pociui ir norėčiau tribūną.
Thank you, Mr. Pocius, and I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Žygimantas Pavilionis, Chair of the Seimas Committee on Foreign Affairs.
Madam Speaker, members of the Seimas, our distinguished guests, Lord Robertson makes an excuse. There are some technical difficulties so far, but hopefully he will be able to join us later. A few words on my behalf. I will be followed by the Deputy Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. I will give you some bitter words and reminders as well. What is the point of a road if it does not lead to a shrine? This is a famous saying. So what is the point of NATO if it does not lead to Ukraine? NATO was established in 1949 with a number of main purposes. First, to defend the threat of the Soviet Union to Europe, to defend freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. And Ukraine is fighting for all these objectives today. It is precisely for these objectives that all the enlargements of NATO have taken place, with the accession of the Central European countries, the Baltic countries, and finally Finland and Sweden. However, this logic has never been applied to Ukraine because Putin demanded so in the NATO summit in Munich in 2007. Since then, Ukraine has been betrayed at least 3 times: in Bucharest, in the NATO summit, after the invasion in 2014, and frankly speaking, in Vilnius in 2023. In a few months' time, NATO will once again be put to the test, the NATO summit in Washington, where once again we have 2 options for Ukraine: to go down the road of Central Europe and the Baltic states, or the road of the European Union, because the European Union has already opened its doors to Ukraine, or the road of Munich, Bucharest, and finally Putin's option. I would very much like to see us in Washington talking not about the past, but about the future. And I'm personally deeply convinced that NATO has no future without Ukraine, and Ukraine has no future without NATO. Therefore, I address everybody, please open the doors for Ukraine to NATO, because Ukraine is fighting not only for all the objectives of NATO, but for our future too. Let us hear Ukraine. As we heard the Baltic states after a decade of fear and uncertainty. And 20 years later, we're proud of this decision together with our NATO partners. Today, Ukraine is fighting heroically for our future. So let us hear my dear friend Alexander Kornienko, who attended the Kalinovsky Forum last week, and let us hear his message he wants to deliver today. Thank you.
Dėkoju Žygimantui Pavilioniui ir
Thank you, Mr. Pavilionis. And I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Alexander Kornienko, who has recently visited the Seimas. He is the first deputy chairperson of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. So please, the floor is yours.
Madam President, thank you very much, Madam Victoria. It's a great pleasure for me to address to you this was after 3 days when I leave Vilnius. And it become good traditions to have very important strategical security meetings on spring in Vilnius. In this regard, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak before you on such an important solemn occasion. On behalf of Verkhovna Rada and all Ukrainian people, I sincerely congratulate you on the 20th anniversary of joining NATO. This event was really important, not only for the security and development of Lithuania as our friendly country, but also for the entire eastern flank of NATO. But results of it, results of this very important step, we can observe only maybe in some years after joining NATO by Lithuania. With your bold step, you showed everyone, and particularly Russian Federation, that any enlargement on your future is impossible. That's why it's very important to support next NATO enlargement to the east and to give Ukraine on the Washington summit some strong wording that will say to us strong commitment from NATO about enlargement. You know that right now air alert signals are going through our country, as well as yesterday, 1 week ago, 1 year ago. Only for last week, Russia sent more than 250 missiles and more than 700 guided air bombs to our civilian buildings and energy facilities. Hundreds of thousands of civilians still without electricity right now. But I want to say on behalf of Ukrainian people, Russia tried to shut down lights in our houses, but they never will shut down lights in our souls. Ukrainian people have continued to heroically resist Russian aggression, standing up for entire civilized and democratic world. It will be impossible without the courage of our soldiers, but without the straight position of our allies, and particularly, and first of all, Lithuania, in supporting Ukraine. We are very thankful for your military and financial support. Since the beginning of Slovenian war of the Russian Federation, Lithuania's political support and multifaceted assistance have been unique. There is no area in which Ukraine would not feel Lithuania's determination and help is response to our urgent and long-term needs. We appreciate Lithuania's approach to standing with Ukraine until its final victory. In these hard times, very important what we say. And when we say until its final victory, it's very important message for all Ukrainians that Lithuania believes in us. We are grateful for your leadership aimed at consolidation and coordinating the present and prospective donor assistance to Ukraine, considering humanitarian and combat demining. We thank the Seimas for its call on Lithuanian government and all EU and all countries to increase military support to Ukraine to at least 0.25% of each country's GDP. It's very important first step to make it possible. And on this example and in this regards, we're all time thankful for Lithuania for your first steps, because you made many first steps that become, political mainstream in some times, in months, in years. But we're very thankful for your pioneering in this, for your volunteering in this. And of course, we're very thankful for your leadership in humanitarian assistance for our temporarily displaced Ukrainians, most women and children who found this to home in Lithuania. It's very important for us to keep hopes for this population of returning to Ukraine, but we're very thankful for you right now about your willing for them. We're very thankful for Lithuanian people for their unprecedented resolve to support Ukraine. And for us, also very important, your political support. And we thank for Seimas for result support of Ukraine or our accession to the EU and NATO. We're very grateful for your active position and support in the adoption of decision to open negotiations of Ukraine accession to the European Union. And in terms of this regard, we also will be very, very thankful for some similar or the same decision about accession Ukraine to NATO. It's time to open this door, what was opened for 10 years, wider. And it's time to NATO to give some concrete plan what Ukraine needs to do and what NATO will to do to join Ukraine and NATO in a very close perspective. I think that together we will find necessary wording, we will find necessary urges for our big allies to give them understanding that destiny not only of Ukraine, but also of eastern flank of NATO, of Eastern Europe, and even of some country in Central Europe, only with Ukraine joining NATO. We're very thankful for all your support and for all your help. We're open for all collaboration, and let's congratulate this day, but let's work more closer and more harder to our common security issue next time. Thank you very much for this opportunity and congratulate with your very, very important anniversary. Thank you. Дякую. Слава Україні.
Героям слава!
Thank you.
Дякую, Олександр. Дякуємо, Олександру.
Thank you, Alexander Kornienko, Deputy Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. And I've been informed that Lord Robertson Porter of Ellen will send his address later on to all of us. I thank all of us for this celebration, and I close this celebration and announce a 5-minute break.